Yo, what's up? This is Jeremy from JJ Innovation Garage in the Peach capital of the state, baby. So, let's take a little walk in here in the shop. Go on Facebook, watch Facebook Reels, just 60 seconds. Give me some support, I appreciate it. Now let's go on inside here and I'll show you what's going on. Mind the mess, but if you're working, you got a mess. So, here's what we got, fellas. 66 Mustang, old blue. Before you do anything on these things, these cars are subframe cars. So that means there is no chassis. It has the chassis rails built inside the car. You got the rear and you got the front. So if you go to cut this thing apart, this thing is going to fold up like a banana on the inside. So you have to take the wheels and tires off so you get all the unsprung and sprung weight off. You have to go in here and you have to jack it up, make sure everything's good. So this is what it did. Measured from here to the floor, it's the same on both sides. From the pinch weld to the floor, it's the same. From the pinch weld here, it's the same. So, hey Jay, why didn't you put a jack back there? Well, I don't have to put a jack here because this leaf spring is all hooked up into this leaf spring is all hooked up in this torque box. So I only had to have a jack stand here. If you put just a jack there on the pinch weld, then you got the rear end that's going to hang down. Therefore, it's going to pick the front up because you're going to have this weight, this unsprung weight, this sprung weight that's going to be pulling down. Therefore, it's going to pick the front of the car up. So put a jack stand there and you don't have to put one here at the torque box. All right. So from the pinch weld here to the floor is the same distance as it is from the pinch weld from here to the floor. Also supported the torque box right there, because if you don't, what's going to happen is when you go to the front to try to get this level and square here, and you jack this up, and then once you cut the firewall out, and that's not supported, what's going to happen is going to do this, because the firewall is connected to your frame rails here. So when you cut it loose, it's going to actually flex down. Now, here is something very interesting. Let's say you've been riding around in your car and the toe boards are wore out and they rotted and rusted. Therefore, the car is going to flex anyway because that structural is gone. So, with fastbacks and coupes, you have the roof, the doors, and the glass, and the back glass is all structural. A lot of people don't know that, but the glass is structural. It's together. Now, if this thing was a convertible, it'd have a different completely X brace underneath it. Chassis would be completely different. So, it wouldn't have a chassis. It'd have a subframe. So, and an X torch box. So, I'm gonna pre-drill a hole here and pre-drill a hole there and pre-drill one here, so when I take the door off, I can put it back. I'm not going to adjust the doors because there's no sense in adjusting the doors, and I know these are original hinges and they wore out. So if you're adjusting the door with old wore out hinges, you're just defeating the purpose. So I'm going to mark where that door goes by drilling the hole in the hinge, drilling a hole in this hinge, taking the door off. I need the door off so I can get the floor pan in. Then I'll put the door right back where it was right now, which you can see the gaps are not very good. But that's probably factory to par, probably wore out hinges, whatnot. Because the floor pan has to go through the driver's side door or the passenger side door. So once all that gets replaced, then he will buy new hinges, then the car will be blasted. So on the inside here, no car is rust-free, fellas. No car is rust-free. No car. So I might have to cut this floor pan back just a little bit more, about 1 inch, 2 back, so I can get the new floor. Spit it out, Jay. Ain't nobody gonna take it from me. The new firewall has to drop down just a little bit further, and this right here is hemming it up. So I got to clean this up to get this out, and then the new firewall drop down. I'll mock it up, get it where it needs to be. Put the cowl where it needs to be, mock it up. Mock this stuff up about 10 or 15 times. Measure, make sure everything where it needs to be. Put the hood on the car, make sure the hood shuts where it needs to be. Make sure everything's where it needs to be. Make sure that everything, because it's a whole lot easier to take these little screws out than it is to get a spot weld out. So once everything's mocked up, everything looks good, I'll clean everything up. I'll spray zinc weld through primer after everything's been treated, and then I'll start plug welding everything, and then the back side of the dash will be metal treated before it gets closed up, because it's a whole lot easier getting to it right now than it is laying on my back. So everything is plumb square. The pinch welds, had to put a couple washers there to get it where it needed to be. The torque box is supported. Everything is supported. Everything is level. It's level right there. You see it? It's level this way. It's level this way. Upside down, backwards, sideways, cruise, cattywampus, you name it, fellas. It is square plumb to get go. Now, woo, we're at the 5-minute mark, fellas. So, once the firewall and the cowl is in place and it's welded in, then we'll measure where the seat riser goes, because the new pans don't have the seat risers, and you got to make sure you put them in the right spot. Then once all that's notes took, I've already done it on that side, so I know where that one's at. I got to measure this one. They should be the same, but you don't never know. They should be, but they should. So once all that's done, then I will cut out the floor pan all the way around. I will cut it around the torque box here, and here's where the seam is. The seam comes around, goes like this, comes back out, and I will clean all this up. I have the mercy brake cable to get loose from the bottom of the pan, and that is about it. So once that's done, once this and that's done and it's solid, then that is the next big project. So fellas, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and it takes time to make sure everything is square, plumb, level, cross-braced, upside down, backwards, inside and out. Take your time, fellas. Take your time. Don't try to hurry up and do it fast. And if somebody down the road says they can do it cheaper, let them do it cheaper, because there is no reason for you to cut yourself short and doing it halfway. So you might as well do it right. Take your time. Make sure you measure. Pull reference points. Get you a notebook. Get everything where it needs to be, and write down everything. Take pictures, measurements, everything. Because if you screw this up, then everything's going to be screwed up. Car is not going to drive straight. Car is going to be crooked. It's going to be everything, because it's basically, this is the whole front frame rail. This is the subframe right here. It's not like a Camaro where it unbolts and bolts back. This is the heart of the car. If I was to cut that loose, this right here would just completely fall out of the car. So take your time, measure, 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 measure. They say in a perfect world they have some hours set, but you don't never know what you're going to get into, fellas. You're going to find more rot and everybody, because this guy just wanted to put floor pans, and then found out that the upper and outer cowl was rotted. So he's basically getting everything all the way back to the floor pan. The floor pan looks pretty daggone solid. I mean, it looks nice and solid up underneath here. It doesn't look like there's anything major going on right this minute. But you don't never know until you blast it. Once you blast them, you'll find everything that's wrong with them, okay? So fellas, take your time with everything and go from there. Once this thing gets blasted, there is a weld seam. There's a seam right here that's lead filled in. That will be sweated out. It will be welded up solid. There'll be a piece of metal put in it. That'll be welded up solid, and then it'll be metal treated, because these things will flex. Just like a 71 Camaro, they will flex and bust, okay? And some products do not like lead. Old products don't go with the new products, and you'll have issues, and everything is just not good. So I appreciate every single one of you. Remember what I said. Remember what I say, fellas. Let's turn this bad boy around. Remember what I say. Don't worry about the man up the road. Don't worry about the man down the road. Sweep off your own front porch before you worry about sweeping off anybody else's. Put God first. Let loose and drag. Peace, love, and chicken grease. I'm out. Appreciate you.